There it goes. Great. Thank you all for your cooperation. And there's no worries about having camera on or off during the talks. You're welcome to do either way. We'll just keep our mics muted for the speaker portion, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end and share our questions. So we'll give people one more minute to join, and then we'll start. Okie dokie, I think we are ready to begin then. So once again, a big welcome to everyone, and thank you very much for joining us tonight for our Life After JET event. Tonight we're bringing you, sorry, let me just adjust this. Okay. We're bringing you a lineup of 6 fantastic speakers who will be sharing their stories, career stories after JET, and their advice on transitioning careers. Then this will be followed by, and those 6 speakers are former JETs, all Irish, some based in Japan, some based in Ireland now. We'll also have an update from Aedín McConnell from Post-Primary Languages in Ireland. And then we will move on. After all that, we will have a Q&A session. So you'll be welcome to ask any questions you have at that point. You're also welcome to add questions to the chat as we go through the speaker discussions, if you don't want to leave it till the end, and we'll cover them all in at the end. And lastly, the last portion of the night, we will have some breakout rooms, so we have a chance to meet each other and speak directly. And it's been a while since we've done these kind of online events, so do forgive us if we're rusty just with the format, but delighted that you've all turned out to be here. And oh yeah, and myself as well, just to give you a quick introduction, my name is Aisling Barry. I'm a director and a vice president with the Ireland-Japan Chamber of Commerce. And I came to Japan in 2014, so just 10 years ago now, and originally was for study abroad, and I returned in 2017 on the JET program. Spent 6 years in a coastal city called Kamaishi in Iwate Prefecture, which is north of Sendai. And I got involved with the Ireland-Japan Chamber of Commerce remotely back in 2020 while I was still in Iwate, mainly to try and connect with the Irish community in Japan. Because as you know yourself, when you're off in a remote location, it's hard to always know what's going on with the community from your home country. So that was a great introduction to the Irish community here. And then I got involved with various online events, such as this type of format here, where we try outreach to JET participants and committees as well. So then after 5 years as a JET, I was introduced to a company called WeConnect, and they're one of our corporate members, and I worked remotely for them from Iwate for the first year or so, and then moved to Tokyo just last year. So I'm pretty sure most people on the call are familiar with the JET program, but just on the off chance that we have a few people here, I'll just give a very brief background if I can. The JET itself stands for Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, and was an initiative to sort of improve foreign language education, promote international exchange. Started back in 1987 with only 4 countries initially, and Ireland actually joined the next year as a 5th country. And since then, they've had people from 77 countries join, so it's going into its like 38th year or so. Currently, there's almost 6,000 participants all around Japan. Of those, we have 112 Irish participants, 97 are ALTs, which is assistant language teacher. The other 15 are CIRs, which is coordinator for international relations. And I suppose usually, you're working in local community and based in a school or a local government or a tourism bureau, and you really get that deep exposure to Japanese culture, being immersed in it every day. And it does put you in a position within the local community to build roots that you may not have had a chance to do otherwise. So I think one of the big takes is this international mindset and adaptability, for putting it one way. At IJCC, Ireland Japan Chamber of Commerce, we've been doing our best to reach out to the Jets, incoming Jets, current and of course former. Like a lot of the sort of board members we have a history with Jet, and we've had online event series such as one called Tales from the Region, started by one of our directors, Pat Ryan. We reached out to various Jets around the country, tried and invited them to speak about what they're doing and where they're located, and that's how I kind of initially got involved. This is still an ongoing series, so if anyone is interested in highlighting the region they're in to a broader audience, international audience, then please get in touch. And we all also were delighted to attend the pre-departure orientation for Irish Jets in Dublin last year, as well as when they did arrive in Japan. We kind of have an Irish embassy get together, and we were at that as well, with a special offer that this started last year, where we offered all the incoming Irish Jets 1 year free membership with IJCC. And we are hoping to continue these kind of offers going forward. And just to mention, sorry now to go on longer than I intended, but we do also have a Jet resource page on our website with lots of information targeted at incoming Jets or current Jets as well, just to I guess offer them support in some way. And they're also free. You're also free to reach out to us at any point. So with that, as many of us know, one of the most sort of challenging aspects of Jet is figuring out the next step after Jet and the right timing to go along with that. So that's where tonight's event comes in. We're going to try and offer some insights from our 6 speakers tonight. We have 6 excellent speakers from a real diverse career backgrounds, and I'm sure they have a lot of advice to offer. So I'm going to mute my zip it now for a little bit, pass it over to our speakers. Each speaker will talk for 5 or 6 minutes each, and we'll have the Q&A at the end. And you're welcome to add, like I said, add the questions to the chat at any time. So hopefully I haven't missed anything there. Yep. Okay, then without further ado, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Ronan Miyachi. Thank you, Ronan. You're ready.
Thanks, Aisling. Good evening, everyone. Good morning if you're tuning in from Ireland. I actually have a bit of a voice problem at the moment. I don't know what's going on, so excuse my throat. But yeah, so hello. My name is Ronan Miyachi. Born in Osaka, raised in Ireland. In particular, I was actually raised in Leopardstown, so it was weird joining this call and seeing Patrick's background because I've walked by that place too many times. But yeah, also I just want to say that I saw there was a previous lecture of mine at DCU on the call, so that's a bit nervous, and plenty of friends on the call. So yeah, so just to say a little bit about myself, brought up in Ireland, of course, and then went to DCU for 4 years, studied international business and Japanese there. I'm sure those of you who are familiar with it know the course. And then after graduating, it was actually really tough to get to Japan because it was during COVID, and that you were applying for jobs and stuff like that. And JET was the only one that really stood out to me in terms of opportunities. I'd always wanted to kind of live in the countryside and live a kind of country bumpkin lifestyle in Japan and be involved in the community, and that's exactly the reason why I applied. So I was placed in Shimane Prefecture, in particular a place called Hamada, very, very small town. and I spent a year there. To be honest, it wasn't for me. As you can probably hear and see, I'm a very social person. I like to talk a lot. So doing the CIR job, the job at that office in particular wasn't for me. And um, I was constantly thinking of like my next step while on Jet. And at university, I've kind of really been interested in entrepreneurship and startups and stuff. So I found Intralink. Um, Intralink is uh, as a company is hard to explain, but simply put, they have three services they provide. So they help startups from Europe and America. Well, to be honest, startups worldwide enter Japan. So that's what I do. That's the area that I work in, and I act as a sales representative for Japanese startups. Sorry, no, foreign startups. Um, so the technology varies. But I basically go and pitch to Japanese corporations, varying from any industry, and then um, yeah, that's kind of what I do. And then there's other services such as representing governments in Japan. So um, state of Washington, South Carolina. Um, we've actually worked with Enterprise Ireland before in Northern Ireland. Um, and then the third sector is helping Japanese companies go abroad. So that is basically we have representatives in Japan and we help them kind of do sales in Europe and America. Um, so companies such as Nintendo, Panasonic would be clients. Um, but yeah, in terms of just to kind of wrap it all up and just focus in on the whole kind of event here tonight. Um, what I experienced on Jet was that um, it's an amazing experience. It's an amazing way to get in Japan, really. I don't think there's any other kind of program that allows you to really get involved in the community, allows you community access. Because I think if you were to go and live in the countryside as a foreigner, it'd be very hard to get involved in the community. But the Jet program is an amazing way to do it. And I would say think about think about how you're going to use the JET program as a platform. Um, Japanese is, I think, if you can improve your Japanese as much as possible, it's obviously a plus. Um, but I think the JET program, regardless if you want to stay in Japan or move back to Ireland, it's an amazing way to really um improve communication skills and intercultural skills. So yeah, I don't know if I did that introduction right or talking about it correctly, but I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you, Ronan. Before we move on, could you just tell us how you went from being a jet to your career now? Did you use any resources to sort of make that jump into your career?
Yeah, so when I was in DCU, there was actually this I'm sure those who are kind of maybe in the CR position or looking at jobs would have heard of Career Forum Net. It's basically a bilingual job search kind of company. And they came to DCU and the person there kind of really kind of was talking to me and incentivizing me to apply on the website, but I actually found Intralink through that website. Um, and when I saw the company, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So uh, that's how I found Intralink. But then while I was on Jet, I was actually um, looking at Intralink. And then what I basically did was I actually messaged the managing director of Intralink directly and said, hey, I'm really interested in working at your company. Sent a CV and cover letter that was already specifically made for Intralink, and then that's how I got my job. I didn't go through any like events or anything. Just used the power of LinkedIn, and uh, did that. So yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for covering that. And I think the point you're making about kind of jet being your avenue into Japan is a good point because once you're in here, you could kind of get a taste for what it's like to live here and are you suited to the culture? Do you want to stay here for the long term or not? and also at the same time, you know, get that exposure to the community aspect that you said. That's one thing that JET does give you real good kind of exposure to. And with that comes the language, I feel, because when you're in that sort of remote location, you kind of have to use your Japanese to get by. And I've noticed since moving down to Tokyo that you don't really need to use it as much. So I'm very grateful to have those years in the countryside where I had to use Japanese to communicate with people. So yeah, thank you very much, Ronan, and we'll see what questions come your way at the end of the session. Thanks, and thanks for doing this with your voice not being in the best shape tonight as well.
No problem.
Great. Okay, we'll now move on to our next speaker, Grace Walsh. So over to you, Grace, when you're ready.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name's Grace, and I'm currently working as a translator and editor in corporate communications in Sojitsu, which is one of the 7 trading companies in Japan. You might know some of the other ones because they're a bit more famous, such as Mitsubishi Corporation or Mitsui&Co. I originally studied applied language and translation studies in Japanese and French at DCU. That's the same as Ronan. And I also joined JET around at the same time as Ronan as well. It was during COVID, and I had waited in Ireland for about 2 years. So exactly like Ronan, it was a pathway into Japan for me that worked the best. And I was assigned to Shizuoka Prefecture, where I worked in Hamamatsu City, which is one of the designated cities in Japan. It's not too big, but it's not too small either. It didn't feel countryside, but it didn't feel massive either. I do think it's around, I think it's slightly smaller than Dublin. So it was quite a comfortable place to live, I think. I worked there as a CIR, so my main duties were translating and interpreting, which suited me down to the ground because that's the exact type of work that I wanted to do as I did in my degree. So yeah, I got a lot of experience. The picture there is me interpreting for a refugee who came from Ukraine, I think. So yeah, that was quite cool. I got quite a lot of unique experiences that I don't think I would have got anywhere else. I don't think anyone else would have let me interpret for that kind of event. I don't think they should have either, but anyway, it was nice. After JET, I knew that I wanted to continue working in Japan, and especially I wanted to continue working in translation if possible. I didn't really think interpreting was for me, so I was more focused in on translation. And one of the great resources that I think I found was that JET had a career fair where they have a bunch of companies from Japan who are looking to hire foreign staff. And that's where I found my company, who were looking for who would have found it a lovely translator. So I applied, and that was really great. And I think all the experiences that I gained while working as a CIR really helped me, you know, to get the job, because I had, I guess it was 1 year and 9 months because I joined at a weird period, but it would have been about 2 years of experience behind me. So I think that that was really, really good. And I think building upon what Ronan said, I do think that you have to use your time in Japan, especially your time on JET, as a platform to do the next thing that you want to do. So I had never taken any JLPT tests, which I probably should have, but I didn't. So I used my time to obviously study Japanese more. And I got, I guess, JLPT N2 and then N1, more or less. I think it was 6 months and then 1 year after I got here. And I used the rest of the time, I guess, just practicing my language skills, because that's something that I knew that I wanted to work in. So I do think after JET, if you think I want to work in this, I want to get a job in this, I think you can utilize the time that you have there to build upon the skills that you need, or try and take some kind of certification that might help you towards your next goal, if that makes sense. And I think that's it from me.
Thank you, Grace. That was fantastic. And like you said, great advice. I think the decision that you made to start thinking about the future while on JET is crucial, and not waiting till the last minute. So using the time wisely to prepare, doing your JLPT certs, other certifications, depending on what kind of career you're looking towards. And I know a lot of people don't really know what career they want to enter after JET, but I think even if that's the case, it doesn't stop you from starting to network early on, even while you're a JET. And there's lots of opportunities to start networking, whether it's in your local community or looking beyond that to look at what groups you can kind of, even an online like this kind of online platform, and letting people know that, you know, I would encourage people to take that step and start networking and tell people about what you're looking to do in the future, and just kind of putting your name out there. But yeah, fantastic advice. I didn't realize that you and Ronan were kind of so similar in that you were waiting because of COVID to come to Japan. So good to hear your kind of different experiences as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Grace. We will move along so to our next speaker, which is Patrick Brophy. And yeah, Patrick, over to yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Aisling, and thanks to the Chamber for having me on here today. I'm starting to feel like I'm probably the oldest speaker here. I was on JET in 2008 until 2013, and I've been home for about 10, 11 years this year. So I'm feeling that age a little bit with all the youth that has come before me. But JET is such a unique experience, and I'm really glad to be here to talk about it, because I find the only people I can talk comfortably about my time on JET with is other JETs. So yeah, I was in Osaka Prefecture, and unlike our previous speakers, I didn't really know what I wanted to do post-JET. For a long time, my goal was to go to Japan and to live in Japan. And once I had achieved that goal, I didn't really know what the next step was. So transitioning to a career post-JET back in Ireland, I would say I didn't do it that well. So I came back in 2013. Unemployment was quite high. It was the, I think unemployment post the 2008 financial crisis peaked in 2012. And then it kind of started to go down. But in 2013, it was still about 12, 13%. So my first bit of advice would be don't move back to Ireland in 2013. But it took me a while to get onto what I would consider now a career path that I find particularly satisfying. I spent my first year back in Ireland, a year and a bit, working on kind of unpaid internships in startups. Then I worked for a travel company, a tour company, for about a year and a bit with, I also see that somebody I used to work with is on this call, Rory Conati, now at the Embassy of Ireland in Tokyo. He worked in that same company with me. We worked together for about, I think, 6 months, maybe a year. After that tour companies, I worked in the Embassy of Japan in Ireland. So between 2016 and 2018, they were celebrating the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Japan and Ireland. And they hired additional help. And so I was that person, and I was very fortunate to work there. And during my time in the embassy, I live in Goatstown. I used to walk to the embassy every day through UCD, through the campus of UCD. Now, I studied in UCD. And as my contract was coming to an end, I was like, oh God, there's a nice atmosphere here, but it's also really close to my house. I should see if there's a job going here. And I did. And there was a job going in the international office, which obviously with my experience in Japan and kind of working with international organizations based in Ireland a little bit, I thought would be a good next step. Working in the embassy had been very rewarding, but it also made me, having Japan associated with work was kind of making me not love Japan as much as I used to. So I thought that working in an international office where I wouldn't be focusing on one country would really kind of, I kind of felt like I needed that little bit of a break. But looking back now, so now I spent 3 years nearly 4 years working in UCD in the international office. I spent the first 6 months working on kind of the rest of world team. Then I spent a year working on the China team. And then I spent another 2 years, nearly 2 years, working on the governance and operations team. The first 2 roles were primarily student recruitment, so it would be going out and dealing with student queries, assessing applications. I got to visit China twice to kind of go and meet students in high schools and universities and talk to them about coming to study in UCD. And then latterly on the governance and operations team, it was more about having oversight of the applications and dealing with, say, when COVID happened, how are we going to assess applications? How are we going to reply? How are we going to adapt to that situation? And then after 4 years in UCD, I moved to Dunleary Institute of Art Design and Technology. When I was in UCD, I discovered I really liked working with Excel sheets and data and things like that. And so an opportunity came up in IADT that was kind of primarily focused on that, or at least became more of the job. And I jumped on the opportunity, and I'm here nearly 2 years now. So yeah, my path is a bit more winding, but I think in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense to me. When I was leaving Japan and leaving JET, I thought I really like education is something I really believe in. It's really strongly aligns with my beliefs and my values. And education is somewhere I thought I would have liked to have worked in. But apart from teaching, I didn't really know of any other pathway into that kind of sector. So it makes sense to me now in retrospect that, yeah, of course I should have went and started to work in a university. Because even as an administrator or professional staff in an institute, you're supporting the students. Your role is always students connected to either make sure that the student experience is as good as possible, or that the students who are incoming are going to adapt as well as possible, or to help students pursue their education goals. And so, yeah, it really makes sense on looking back on it. In relation to, like, before I go into what I think JET can help you, I'm going to talk a little bit about interviewing. Something that I relearned coming back was interview skills. And I came across this method called the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, and result. And I found this a really helpful heuristic when it comes to preparing for interviews and looking back at your experiences and kind of building a kind of a portfolio of anecdotes that you can then use when it comes to an interview. And your time on JET, and as other people have mentioned, is like communication and adaptability are huge, and it's such a huge part of JET. And a lot of people are going to list them as skills. But unlike a lot of people, you as JETs and ex-JETs are going to have very concrete examples of how you did that, and that you can build anecdotes around. So they're going to, you might be asked in an interview, tell us about a time you had a communication difficulty and how you overcame that. And you're going to have run into that so many times in your time in JET, not necessarily just with Japanese co-workers, but also with the other people from the States, Jamaica, South Africa, that you will have met who are also on JET, who also communicate in a different way. And again, adaptability. You'll have concrete examples of how you moved overseas, how you were dealing with maybe moving to a different school each day, or juggling different levels, or having to teach junior high school and high school, in the morning and in the afternoon, or even getting used to the annual changeover of teachers in April, and how you would have to suddenly deal with different situations, different teaching styles, different people, and how you'd have had to adapt to that situation. And I'm sure everybody can think of some situations that they would have experienced in their time, and that they can build like little anecdotes around, using this kind of STAR methodology to then have in their back pocket for when it comes to interview. So yeah, I think that's it from me. Thanks for listening.
Great stuff. Thanks a million, Patrick. That was very informative, and I think we all appreciate the honesty behind your story, that it was a bit of a windy road to get to where you are. I think it's definitely the reality that after your first job after JET may not be your dream job, and it can take time to get to kind of a, like you mentioned, working in university. In retrospect, it made sense, but at the time, it takes these different experiences to work up towards that. And I think that honestly, that's probably more common than not, that people take their time in finding their feet and where they want to be. And interesting about the sort of interview skills, that like to prepare more so rather than just saying like, I was in the JET program, this is what it is, and making it relevant to yourself, and utilizing the kind of skills in terms of concrete examples for your future career opportunities. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on then to our next speaker, who is Susan. Are you with us, Susan?
I am. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Hi, everyone. So I'm not sure if it's deliberate, but maybe, Patrick, I can confirm that you're definitely not the oldest JET participant in this room. So going up with in age or not, but I just had to count there. I think I've been in Japan now coming on 15 years. I keep on, if anyone asks, I always say 10 or 11, but I'm lying to myself and to them. So I need to face it's been a long time. So I did from Wicklow, based here in Tokyo, working for Dentsu, which is a big advertising agency here. And I moved over here in 2015, and I think I'd been over on business quite a lot, but it was only when I actually got here and worked in the office every day. This is obviously pre-COVID. I realized that there was about 8,000 people coming into this office every day, which was more than the population of Wicklow where I grew up. So that was, I remember being quite a culture shock. But I did international marketing and Japanese in DCU. And then, of course, one of the third year was spent abroad. After we graduated, I think most of us actually did come out on the JET program. And I ended up in a small little town called Takashimacho in Shiga Prefecture. And it was actually because of Gulliver, Jonathan Swift, or the Tale of Gulliver's Travels, that I was, there's a big statue in front of the station of Gulliver, and it was spotted once, and by someone going by on the train. They got in touch with the embassy, I believe, and the Irish embassy then made a connection with that town, and this tiny little town in Shiga Prefecture was twinned with the whole of Ireland. So it's middle of nowhere, nothing there. We didn't even have a convenience store, but we had an Irish pub. So on a Sunday, you could get a pint of Guinness, but you couldn't get a pint of milk. It was that kind of level of countryside living, but it was wonderful. And it's there for the full 3 years, as it was at the time. And then after that, it was a case of I wanted to stay on in Japan, so what to do post JET. And also, I think kind of in terms of job experience, unless you really want to go into teaching, as great as the JET experience is, it is quite, you don't really have kind of work kind of professional experience. That's not the right word, but we don't have kind of, it obviously is more teaching than kind of than working. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I mean. So that was like, well, where are we going to, what do I want to do next? And where can I go? So I did the, at that time, countryside. I did quite a lot of, I was also the only non-Japanese in the town. So I obviously kind of knew the big wigs in the town, and by letting it be known and speaking to as many people as I could, that I was looking into other opportunities to stay on in Japan. I did go to the career events in Tokyo that JET put on at the time, and then also got in touch with recruitment agencies in Osaka, I remember, and spoke to different universities in Kyoto and so on. But really it was I was very lucky because somebody in the town, their older brother had a big advertising agency down in Osaka. So it was extremely purely by luck and connections that I got an interview there. And I ended up working in, it's part of Benesse Group now, which I'm not sure if many of you know, but so an advertising agency, but our clients were all universities around Japan. So gave me an experience in advertising. And then that brought me, I ended up moving over to London after 3 years of working with that agency. And that led me to with the experience, then I was able to go into an NEC corporation, or NEC Europe at the time, with the kind of experience in advertising behind me. And I worked there and then eventually transferred to Dentsu, London, and was working there for the guts of 7 or 8, almost. I was in London for about 10 years. And then Dentsu asked if I would move over to Tokyo. So I did that in 2015, thinking I would just do it for a year or so. And here I am still. So I did do one stint. Friends here call it my working holiday back in Ireland, but I did move back home for almost a year and got a job with an ad agency there. But Dentsu actually asked me if I'd come back to work on an Olympics related project. So I came back and worked on the torch relay, Olympic torch relay for Coca-Cola. So yeah, that's still has me here. But so the transition from JET, I mean, I think I definitely got very lucky. But it's also just, I think it's a different world out there now with LinkedIn and then all, just IJCC and everything. I would say just network and speak to as many people as you can. And also, I know myself having, I'm often approached, and I think I hear about other kind of people within the Irish community as well, kind of mentoring or kind of, just helping Irish people here. Once, I think if you reach out to anyone within the Irish community, I think it'd be very surprising for them to say no. I think most of us are always happy to help another person who either kind of wants to stay on in Japan or even like move home. I think just kind of people who are over here were all very, very helpful. And I think it's been touched on then by Patrick as well, but just in terms of point I was going to make as well, obviously being on the JET program, your communication skills and your adaptability skills, really are honed. It's such a great experience. But as Patrick said, it was the first time for me to have come over to kind of have mixed with so many people apart from Irish. I think in college we had different kind of Spanish and and German students or whatever within our class, and then obviously kind of exchange students growing up. But it was the first time to really mix with so many different cultures, which was a learning experience and definitely something that I think has benefited all of us who did have that opportunity. And I think it's also been mentioned before that just while you're here on the program, because it's a different sort of work experience, unless you know that you do want to go into teaching, then just try and build up your skill set while you're on the JET program. And that can be language as well in terms of the JLPT, but also just on the JET program, you do have spare time. So you can do kind of, there's so many online courses or whatever, you can kind of just increase your qualifications if you know what you want to do. But language, I think, is a huge thing. I mean, it definitely helped me. I had the degree, of course, coming over here, but I think it was actually coming to Japan, living in the middle of nowhere. And when I made friends who couldn't speak English, that really, the kind of actual speaking part's very different than I had been learning from a book or in a classroom. So I think that's also one of the huge benefits of the JET program, that you're literally in at the deep end, and you have to just sink or swim and try and learn as much as you can. And I remember at the end, actually, the gentleman I said who introduced me to the CEO of the ad agency I ended up at my farewell dinner from the town, he said, "Oh my God, your Japanese has improved so much. When I met you first, you couldn't speak a word of it." And I was like, well, I had a degree, but it's a whole different world, kind of being able to speak it when every day and being surrounded by it as well. So I just say advice would just be to try and pick up. It's not everything, and as Aisling said, once you're in Tokyo, you can get away without it. I think mine's Japanese, even though I use it every day at work, it's probably not as good as it was when I lived in Shigaken. But I would just say, just use the time to study and network and enjoy the time on the JET program, because it is a very special experience. And I'd say some of my best friends, you know, to this day are those that I made on the JET program. And when I moved to London, I lived with two of them. And as Patrick said, I think the only people who really, when you're talking about Tanaka-san or whoever, you know, the only people that really get what you're saying are people that have lived, you know, everyone else's eyes kind of glaze over. But I think it was, you know, it's really great to, when I helped me settle in on the other side when I moved to London, having, you know, kind of people there who understood the whole experience. So yeah, it was a great opportunity, and it's amazing that it's still going on. So I would encourage anybody to go for it. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Susan. That was a fantastic story, and great advice overall. And you really did the full loop, coming over and then joining a company here, but getting sent back there and then getting sent back to Japan. So, you know, definitely your adaptability and your resilience was increased, I think, during your time.
I hope so. Thank you.
You also mentioned like the mentoring kind of side of things and reaching out to people in the community. For example, with the Irish community here, I definitely agree. Everyone that I've spoken to or interacted with is really does want to help those who are looking to have a career here in Japan or back in Ireland. And it's always been, everyone's been very welcoming with advice and introductions and things. So
100%.
within IJCC, in a few years ago, we had a mentor program, and it kind of faded away, but we are looking to restart that. So we hope that will be another asset to the Jets and other members as well going forward. So great to hear your experience, and thank you very much for sharing with us. Thank you. Okay, we will have two more former JET speakers tonight. Next up, we have Erika. So Erika was my classmate in DCU. So looking forward to hearing from Erika.
Thanks, Aisling. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Aisling mentioned, I was her DCU. So my background is applied languages and translation studies in French from DCU. And we actually all went on the JET program in the same year as well. So I was an assistant teacher in Hachinohe in Aomori Prefecture from 2017 to 2020. I had an amazing 3 years while on JET. I was just immersing myself in the community and basically trying everything that I could. I was able to learn new hobbies. I played the shamisen and was part of 2 years while on JET. I did kickboxing for some reason, and I was in a group. And I tried out sports for the first time, like skating and skiing, all through the JET program. So similar to, I guess, like Patrick, I wasn't really wanted to do. And that's why I kind of just focused on enjoying my time on JET and kind of like seeing what I could pick, like see if there's any path that was interesting to me at that time, because there's just there's so many that you could see yourself in after, and I guess it's kind of you to decide what you think you want to. But see, even if you think you might be good at that thing, that reality, as I would soon find out. But anyway, I'll get to that later. So I'm currently working for the HPRA, which is health regulator, and I am an enforcement intelligence analyst. Basically, we try and disrupt the sale and supply of falsified authorized medicinal products that come into Ireland. So like if you see that title and then you see like the background in JET, it's like, that's the connection. But you know, to get now, like all my experiences on JET was definitely relevant and helpful in terms of like my ability to kind of deal with stress and like the and we talked about the communication skills that you get on JET. I think one of the interview questions to me for this job was like, oh, talk about something, a difficult challenge that you're able to over. And I my example for some reason was I learned how to drive in Japan in Japanese. And I was like, what are not the challenges that I definitely had like a lot of difficulty managed to overcome. And I was able to drive and also drive in Ireland, and that really helped me in life skills as well. Yeah, I mean, I think there's just so many opportunities that you don't think would help in a future, they do. And yeah, okay, sorry, I'm not rambling. Back to, okay, was in Japan, was deciding to come back to Ireland. This was around 2020 where the pandemic was happening, and faced with, okay, do I stay in Japan, do I go back to Ireland? At this point for 3 years, and I was sort of realizing that teaching English was not for me. So this was the part where I was like, okay, I do really like living in Japan, kind of want to stay in Japan. At the same time, the pandemic was kind of in the back of my head, and I'm like, ooh, go back because I want to be closer to my family. Everything was very uncertain. But in the end, I did end up going back to Ireland, but not without to find maybe a career in Japan first. I did go to the JET career, and it was very informative. I actually interviewed for got quite far, but in the end, I ended up going to Ireland, and I think it was for the best because there were certain circumstances that made it so that the decision to go back to Ireland was better for me. However, getting back to Ireland, that was such a weird time because, as you know, the pandemic, everything was there. It was really hard to find jobs, especially with just like speaking skills. It was very niche. I ended up studying master's in human resources because, again, remember I told you about, oh, maybe I'd be good at that. Maybe I'll try it. Okay. So I studied in HR, having no background and just a feeling of maybe I'll be good at it. I was not good at it. So I ended up getting a job afterwards, after I finished a master's. Actually, hang on. There's too many. Sorry, my path is so windy. I have to like go back and forth. So during the time that I was for my master's, I was asked to work part-time at the embassy of Japan and Ireland. So I was actually the program coordinator, or the JET program coordinator that year. And I think Ronan and Grace would have been some of the people in my year. And I'm so sorry that year was such a mess. But anyways, after that, I master's, I finished my job at the embassy part-time, and I went into a HR role with a big tech company. And honestly, it was not so great. I was not great at it. So this is what I'm saying. Don't be discouraged if your plans don't go to like if they're not what you think they were going to be. I finished probation. They actually asked me to continue my contract. Politely declined. Sorry, my computer's gone down. Declined, and I was lucky because in that a very big company, so you could move internally. Ended up being transferred into a corporate security role. Again, background, but I just kept upskilling and certifications related to the things that I was doing at the time. Ended up enjoying it. However, it was not something I could do long term because it was shift work. So it was it was just very hard. I did that for about a year, but I did at that point figure out that I had an interest in like the security industry. And so I started looking for jobs similar to that position and found my current through LinkedIn actually. So LinkedIn is a great. So I took a chance. My experiences, including on JET in my interview, got the job. I am now 2 years later. And yeah, so like I said, it was grinding, but I think my mindset was just keep going until I find something that I was, one, good at, two, enjoy, three, keep upskilling in it. So yeah, I guess in terms of like what to convey to people, at least my path or story is that don't be to try different things. Like your career is not going to be linear, so just keep doing stuff you like and eventually you'll get there. Yeah, so that's me.
All right, thank you very much, Erika. I think your decision to move back to Ireland was definitely a huge decision, and has probably shaped your career and lots of things in your life. So it's definitely a tough decision when you're faced with that. Where do I go next? What do I do? So it's good that you did attend the JET career forums and the fairs and things, and there are lots of resources out there. But from your example, it does, it's a good example of how that doesn't always provide enough. And sometimes you end up moving back to your home country and you still don't know what you want to do. And it does take time to figure things out and get your ducks in order. But you definitely are a great example of keeping busy and always having something to do, whether you're volunteering or you're working on a certificate or just something or other, like part-time at the embassy. I think being willing to just try things and get a feel for it is one of your strong points and seems to have paid off. So great to hear your experiences. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on to our last JET alumni speaker for the night, which is Derek.
Hello there. Good morning, good evening, whichever you happen to find yourself. So as Aisling has introduced, my name is Derek. I'll try not to be the exact same as pretty much every other speaker, though unfortunately a lot of my circumstance is the same. So I'm actually also a DCU graduate. I know, shocking. DCU and JET, it's a iconic duo. My background is particularly in translation and interpretation. So I did my bachelor's in applied language and translation studies. Again, you probably heard that phrase far too often tonight. My specialty was French and Japanese, and I went to on JET from 2016 until 2019, and I was thrown up to the frigid north of Hokkaido. I was there for 3 years. I was in a little ski town known as Niseko. If we have any ski heads in the audience, they'll probably know that name. I'm probably screaming it. It was actually quite a funny situation. We were very rural, but also very built up in a way. So the main town itself was very rural, very traditional Japanese small town, but I'd say about 10 minutes away, you had an international ski resort. And I think we were also the town in Hokkaido with the highest foreigner or foreign national to Japanese ratio. I think it was something along the lines of 2 to 1. Our entire population was 6,000 people. About, I'd say, 2 to 3,000 were foreign nationals, mostly Australians. So there was definitely a lot. I was a CIO as well. I was working in the Niseko Town Hall, particularly for the Industry and Tourism Division, as you can imagine, for a ski resort, as well as the Planning Division. So my role was effectively more or less an interpreter and translator, which actually fit really well with my plan, really. I was always intending to go on JET to actually increase my translation and interpreting skills, particularly actually interpreting. Unfortunately, Ireland is actually quite great for translation degrees. I think there's Limerick, UCC, DCU, Trinity. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of interpreting. And it's a very different skill, as probably anyone here has had to do it. The cold sweat you get when you are asked to interpret. So that was definitely a big learning curve, but it was very handy having that. So that was actually one of the biggest experiences that I brought from JET, was actually being able to, one, do interpreting in a varied sort of field. I remember in one day I went to the hospital to help with some vaccinations for some young children, which is always terrible because you feel so bad. These kids are crying because they're getting an injection. It's like, I'm facilitating this. I'm so sorry. But I would switch from the hospital environment. I was then helping get someone move in. So that was a very like legal, formal situation. To then there was helping out on a farm with some of the farm hands. They needed a bit of help like interpreting and something, to then going back to the office and translating a tourism brochure for the autumn colors. It's I think that's actually one of the best things actually about the JET program, is it's extremely varied. As probably everyone here has heard the iconic phrase, every situation is different. I probably hate that phrase. I know I did. But it really quite is. So as in a way, kind of for myself, because I actually came back in 2019, which, as we all know, was very close to another time period, the pandemic. So much like actually Patrick was saying, coming back from JET, there was a bit of a difficulty sort of trying to reintegrate back into Ireland in a way. I think the JET program is very good in kind of securing you. So one thing I would really suggest, if when you are coming back, is just kind of try and keep a network not only in Japan but also in Ireland in case you are coming back. I think that's one thing that I didn't really do, and it's kind of a regret that like I didn't actually think on that. Now, thankfully, I had something of a fallback idea. I did my master's, so again, I went into translation and technology. So more like the localization and technical aspect, which actually was a great help for what I'm doing now. So as you can probably see, my logo there is Johnson & Johnson. Now you're probably wondering, how in the name of God am I dealing with Johnson & Johnson? So anyone in Japan, you've probably seen AccuView or Define, as they're probably called over there, the contact lenses. So yeah, we effectively, I'm working as an interpreter and translator there. And my master's, as well as my experience in JET, basically I had the experience from JET, and then the degree from here effectively is what allowed me to get into J&J. And funny enough, as sort of Susan was kind of referencing there, your network is kind of very important. So in actual fact, I only got this job thanks to things like the IJCC, which mentioned the fact, oh, by the way, there's a lot of Japanese in the Munster area, because I'm in Limerick at the moment, as well as an ex-Jet who's currently working in J&J, who's like, oh, by the way, we need an extra translator. And we actually went into Jet at the same time. She's like, do you want to come in and help? So I've now been there for 6 months. So it's kind of, as I said, one of the biggest things I would suggest really is just having that network both in Japan and in Ireland. So things like the IJCC, which is that double network. I think is one of the best ones to have, as well as things like the IJA, the Ireland Japan Association, or the JLTI, the Japanese Language Teachers of Ireland, as well as a good one to keep in case you want to go into education, things like that. And also, actually, as Patrick was mentioning there as well, like when I was doing the interviews. So, for example, the picture here was actually a picture book event that we did, where we had, I think, about 500 to 600 picture books gathered for the kids of the town, and we'd actually did I think it was like 8 language reading of picture books, basically. So you can see there we had Chinese, I was doing Irish. Again, I wasn't just dealing with French or Japanese, but things like that. So having like you can kind of pull those experiences. So for example, when I got asked, "Oh, do you have experience organizing events?" Well, there you go. I have this. I could talk about this event, this massive event, or what kind of interpreting experience you have. I, for example, organized and headed an international symposium that was in Niseko about avalanches and snow safety. Or, for example, what kind of challenges did you have I helped start up the first St. Patrick's Day parade in Hokkaido, which you can imagine was a bit of a difficulty being asked, who is this Patrick and why do we drink on his day? A lot of different difficulties there trying to set that up and things like that. So you can really pull very concrete examples, not only just big examples like the ones I've just said here, but even just minor ones, like, oh, a communication issue you had. Like, I'm certain you probably had something to do with, your rubbish being put out on the wrong day, and trying to fix that. Or again, like that also pulls into cross-cultural communication. And again, adaptability, flexibility. You've literally lived in a different country, in a different culture, in a different language, possibly even in a different setting than what you're used to. So being able to pull that in, saying, yeah, okay, I grew up in Dublin City and I went to the equivalent of, the middle of Kerry. That's a big difference there. That does take a lot to kind of, adjust so you can really sort of add that into your interview process. So, and then, yeah, so as the JET program kind of helped me kind of figure out, in a way, it sort of helped me it sort of steered me more from translation, which is what I had studied, more into interpretation, and then slightly more into the technical aspect. So it kind of helped in a way figure out what speciality that I really wanted to kind of go into, which is kind of very helpful, I find. So that's also something that was a great assist there. And again, coming back as well, the community here is a great kind of network to have. So I really would suggest getting involved with it, because otherwise you do very much feel very isolated. Like your experience in Japan doesn't always kind of translate well to people who don't know about Japan in a way. So having that network of people be like, oh, I know this company is looking for this kind of experience. I know, these people I can introduce you or things like that is a great sort of boom, I would say. I don't know now if there's much else that I can really talk about. Really, I think that's mostly myself. Yeah, that's the basics of it. Most of the other points have been covered by Patrick and Erika and Susan. I think the big thing is also just be persistent as well. Be persistent.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek. That was fantastic. I also enjoyed how you sort of started with you mentioned the stress of interpreting, and then you at the very end you brought up how you are specializing in interpreting technology. But I like kind of I don't know if that was a conscious decision, but the connection that you made with those 2 points. As Grace also pointed out, the stress of interpreting, and I feel like anyone who has dealt with that should automatically get a pass for whatever job they want, because no one really knows the feeling at the time that you're experiencing. But and your experience reintegrating back into Ireland and trying to kind of keep a network going in both countries is a really good point, and is sort of one reason why at the moment IJCC is obviously Tokyo based, but it's one reason why we have one of our directors based in Dublin at the moment, and he's doing a lot of events for Irish based members and just people who want to have a connection or somewhat to Japan and are now in Ireland. So and you mentioned other organizations like IJA and such, which I think ties in nicely. And oh, sorry, last thing I just wanted to bring up was, you know, I remember yourself and myself at these like training conferences, CIR training conferences, sitting around eating pizza in Yokohama, and like we were always so looking forward to having those opportunities to finally get together in person. And that was one opportunity to network with other jets. But now I think online platform is just so huge that there's ample opportunities to get out there. So not just the in-person pizza dinners that you have to look forward to. So yeah, tying that in, before we have our Q&A session, and thank you very much, Derek, for sharing your experience with us tonight. We will have an update from Aedín McConnell, who is from Post-Primary Languages in Ireland, which is an agency of the Department of Education in Ireland that provides support for foreign language education at post-primary level in Ireland. So yeah, I'll hand over to you, Aedín.
No problem. Well, I share my screen, or I'm totally okay with just speaking casually, like either is fine with me.
Yes, no, we can, yeah, Lily can shut this one down and you can share your screen. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder.
Problem. No problem. Just let me know if you can see the screen, okay? Now, can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Grand. So you can all see and hear me okay anyway. Good. So it's just thanks, Aisling, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for your JET experience. It was just, there's so many great experiences there, and it was just so lovely to hear everyone. So as Aisling said, my name is Aedín, and I'm a clerical officer with Post-Primary Languages Ireland. And I'm here to talk to you all today on behalf of PPLI, but also on behalf of its awareness campaign, which is Languages Connect. So and also a little about myself. So I'm an ex-jet. So I was in Kitakyushu in Fukuoka Prefecture in 2016 to 2018. So Derek, I think we might have been gone the same year. So we might have been on the same thing going over, but opposite sides of the country. So hello again. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk to everyone about basically how you can use your opportunities and your experience from the JET programme within the foreign language education space in Ireland, because there's huge opportunities there, and people with the JET experience, with the language and the cultural experience, like they're exactly who we'd love to be spreading awareness about Japanese language and the experience it can give you. So I'm not going to go too much into detail with the kind of the background of the strategy, but basically in 2017 we had the Languages Connect strategy, which is Ireland's strategy for foreign language education in Ireland, and basically it's made up of 4 goals, and PPLI's remit is to support these goals to diversify the uptake of languages in Ireland and increase the opportunities for language learners, and to provide opportunities for potential teachers. And it's a really exciting time, especially within the Japanese language space. And there's a lot of opportunities here. So primarily in post-primary education. So this is just kind of a snapshot of post-primary Japanese education. So at the moment, we have 32 schools that provide Japanese as a curriculum language. It's mainly in the Leaving Cert, and it's spread across all of Ireland. We have Dublin, Cork, Wexford, Clare, and there's some that aren't even mentioned on this slide. So we do have schools in Ireland that are teaching Japanese on the curriculum. And on the last point there, we currently have 24 teachers, either with or supported by PPLI. So we really do support our teachers, and we are always looking for more qualified teachers in Japanese, because there's so much interest. But of course, we need more teachers to put on these classes. So if anyone is interested in becoming a post-primary teacher, there's so much opportunity there. We also host Saturday classes. So this is for if there's schools that don't provide Japanese as a Leaving Cert subject, but a student might want to do Japanese in the Leaving Cert, we provide these classes on a Saturday in Dublin, Cork, and online, and they are for the Leaving Cert. So, but the issue is obviously we want to put on more classes to reach more students. So if you're thinking of going into teaching and becoming a qualified Japanese teacher, there's opportunity for Saturday classes and for teaching during the week in secondary schools. So people ask, how do I become a teacher of Japanese in Ireland? So you will need a minimum level 8 degree. And I know with some speakers, a lot of people have studied Japanese in school, so you would need a level 8 degree. You need to do a PME, so a postmaster's in education. And you need to be registered with the Teaching Council in one more curricular subjects. In PPLI, we do have a Japanese education officer, and we have lots of support and resources there. So just reach out if anyone has a question that I didn't cover in this slide. Now, if you're not a teacher, but you still would like to teach, and you're not sure if I want to do PME, but I would like to tutor, we do have a Say Yes to Languages primary module. So this is, we introduce these sampler modules into primary schools. So schools that have no access to Japanese or there's no Japanese taught near them, we have tutors that go into the school over a 10-week, the term is 10 weeks, and they teach Japanese language and culture. And it's a really fantastic opportunity for primary students to get the opportunity and the exposure to Japanese language. And just here is just a list of all the students that have taken are participating. So we have hundreds of schools. So this is not just the only schools that are doing it. And we of course want more Japanese language tutors in these schools. So if anyone is interested, you don't need to have a PME or qualification. It's just you guys, you lived in Japan and some of you have Japanese proficiency, so you can always do an expression of interest form on our website. We're going into our 4th year, so if you are interested, you can go onto our website and have an expression of interest form. And we try to link you up with schools in your area that are calling for a Japanese tutor. And so the whole point of the module is to raise awareness and inclusion of languages in Ireland. And there's no set curriculum. So if you go in as a tutor and there's specific interests you have, a specific part of Japanese culture that you want to teach them about, it's really flexible in that way. And the icon here on the right, these are all the resources that we provide you. So you're not alone. We do support you if you do want to participate in this. And then the last event that I'm just going to talk about today is our Think Languages Festival. So this is a week-long festival that's aimed at transition years, because we really want to raise awareness of all of the languages that they can take in Leaving Cert. So it's a week-long festival. Now we plan it all year round, but last year there was 183 schools and 15,000 students that participated in this. And this year is going to be from the 18th to the 22nd of November. So where the opportunities for ex-JETs is, we're always looking for people to host workshops to talk about their experience in Japan, their JET experience, why learning Japanese has contributed to the success in their lives and the roads that they've taken. You can also do anything from hosting competitions, doing quizzes, anything. We just really want language ambassadors and people to talk about Japanese language, because the whole point is to make students aware I can do Japanese as a Leaving Cert and I could go on the JET program there, and there's just so many opportunities. So if anyone wants to be a part of that this year, please just reach out to us. And then I will finish up now because I'm conscious I'm probably talking too much now, but on our Languages Connect website, we do have a page that's dedicated to Japanese. And here we're always looking for new content. So we have here, profiles, basically people who study Japanese, where they're going, and how learning languages has impacted their life. We're always looking for new content, and like everyone has spoken here today, it's just fantastic to get you onto the website as well. But if you have a blog or a website or anything you want to share with us, that's absolutely no problem. We'd love to post that on our website too. And if you have any ideas of how to promote Japanese, we'd love to hear from you. And then the last thing I'm going to say is we do have a newsletter because PPLI also does hire. And having JET experience was great for my interview as well. So if we have any upcoming opportunities, you can sign up to our newsletter, but it also informs you of any events we have coming up, any opportunities. So that's on ppli.ie. And if there's anything I haven't covered, just feel free to reach out. So that's me. Sorry, I'll stop sharing now. So.
Thank you very much, Aedín. That was great introduction to PPLI. I always knew of PPLI, but I never quite knew the intricacies of what you actually do. And I also get involved in Japanese from secondary school through transition year, having that few weeks long course where you get exposed to Japanese, and then afterwards doing it for the Leaving Cert in my secondary school. So without that sort of opportunity, I definitely would not have gotten so much involved in Japanese language and culture and gone on the JET program and gone to DCU to study Japanese. So your impact is very strong. I just want you to be aware. It does that. It can definitely change people's lives going in at such an early age, like primary school level. I hadn't no idea that you have these kind of courses for people that they can go to the primary schools near them and sort of introduce Japanese. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just as I said, it's been really successful, and we just love to have more people sign up to, as you said, expose students to this opportunity. So yeah, anyone who's interested, please reach out.
And can I ask, is it other languages that you cover as well? That so if someone, for example, has knowledge in Japanese and French or German, can they?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. So the primary module is for all languages. So if you speak, say, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, and Spanish, and you're like, I'm interested in tutoring these, that's no problem. Like, I was just speaking to Japanese just because the cohort today, but if you have other languages, absolutely, there's opportunities there as well.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Thank you so much. Thanks a million as well for joining us tonight or today. So okay, with that, then we will kind of start to close down the speaking portion. We will have a Q&A now, so I just want to say thank you to all the speakers that we've had so far, and it's been really insightful. So we'll see now, we'll open it to the floor and see what kind of questions we have from our participants. And you're welcome to turn on your cameras, so it's a bit more interactive, and you can use as well the sort of raise your hand feature if you can find that on Zoom. So we definitely will get to everyone that way. And I'll just be clicking through to make sure we don't miss any questions. But you're also welcome to Patrick raised your hand.
It's not really a question, but
yeah,
maybe just something so that people are aware of it. So, Erika talked about going back to Ireland and going back into education. There is a scheme called Springboard, which many people might be aware of. And it usually starts in September in line with the academic year. And people who have been in Japan for less than 2 years, so you have to have been in Ireland for 3 out of the past 5 years, but if you've been in Japan less for 2 years, it might be something you might look at when you come back if you're looking to do further education. Springboard.
Great. And is that like a scholarship kind of a program?
It's a kind of government-supported upskilling. What's it called? It's called I'll read you what it says on Citizens Information. It's a part-time qualifications from level 6, so certificate all the way up to master's degree, for reskilling and upskilling people. So you can do kind of conversion courses, or like courses in your existing area and stuff. Through Springboard, there's about 8,000 courses, and then through another thing called HCI, which is mostly the tech reskilling ones, there's about another 3,000 courses. Applications for September 24 haven't opened yet, but they'll probably open. Usually you have to kind of wait for the minister to announce, like, oh, now they're open. And with the change of Minister of Education, it's probably just been a bit of a delay. But yeah, so that it's just if you're
Just to add to that, it's just that like if you're employed, you pay 10% of the
yeah,
fees, but then
10%,
if
yeah,
you're unemployed, it's free.
yeah.
So like
That's
a
the key
really good
part.
way
Thanks,
to
Erika.
yeah.
Okay, I hadn't heard about that, so that's very interesting. And that's in Ireland, if you're studying in Ireland, not not abroad, for example.
Yeah, it's Ireland. Yeah, you have to be resident in Ireland. You have to be living
Okay.
full time in Ireland. Now, if you're coming back from JET in August to start a course in September, I don't know how challenging they are, like how much they challenge that or what documentation you have to provide, but I'm sure all of your address names and addresses are on your mammy's home address, so you probably still have some letters coming to there.
It's a very useful piece of information. Thank you, Patrick. Have we any questions from our non-speaker participants? Oh, okay, I see Eric has raised his hand. Would you like to unmute Eric and
Oh yeah,
can let us know who your question
sorry.
is also?
Yeah, I think most of the speakers know me because I spoke before even coming to Japan about the JET program and how it would be. But I was wondering, for those that stayed in Japan, when you were leaving JET, what time did you start looking for jobs? You know, because like the contract ends in July. So did you start like the previous year or after the new year? I mean, like from January? I was just curious what that process looked like for you.
And this question is for those who stayed in Japan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So any of our three speakers who stayed in Japan, would you like to comment?
Grace, you go ahead, I think. I feel like you have the best way of explaining this.
I'm not sure if I do, but I'll try anyway. I started looking in about December the year previous because, as you said, the contract year ends at the end of July. So you'd be looking to kind of enter the workforce, I guess, in August. August 1st is usually the ideal date for around then. So at least a lot of the jobs that I was searching for at the time, a lot of them were hiring for that August 1st date. But yeah, I started in the December prior, and then interviews went from, I would say, interviews took about 3 or 4 months, to be honest. They're really extremely long. You have to do multiple sessions, not just interviews, tests, a lot of different things that a lot of different companies will want you to do, and it really depends on what they want. And you're at their mercy. So just do 4 months of interviews, no problem. That's my experience anyway. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Hey Eric,
Thanks.
hope's all
Go ahead,
well.
Ronan.
Where are you dialing in from tonight? Are you in? I think you're somewhere in Tohoku, right?
Uh, Not quite. I'm in Gifu.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
but
Um,
basically by the rice paddies out
that-
here. Yeah.
that's exactly where you want to be. Um, but for me, I'll put my hand up, and I was basically, I kind of got a slap across the head, because I cut contract, with Jet, so I was always looking for an opportunity to kind of like find a job in Tokyo, but find something that I really wanted to jump into. So the job offer came. It's really tough because JET obviously ends in August. Hiring in Japan usually happens around April, especially depending on what area you're going into. But if you're thinking of applying for a Japanese company, um, you have to kind of take that into consideration. If you're thinking of applying for a more international company, I think they're more kind of free on when they're going to accept you. So I would say, although some people may disagree, I would say put yourself first. If you want to work for a specific company, if you want to work in a specific industry, apply during the period that that said company is accepting applicants in. If you already have a company in place and they're pretty free in terms of when they're hiring, um, just kind of talk with them about how the contract is working out and stuff like that. Hope that answers your question.
Ronan, thank you. And I wanted to add just my perspective to this too, because it is one of those topics that people are curious about. Like, when do you start looking? Do you tell your contracting organization I'm going to recontract or not? And it can be tricky. But in my situation, I actually had a job offer in about November or so. So I got this full-time job offer, but I wanted to see through my, see out my JET contract till the end of the year, the JET year, if possible. So I asked the company if they'd be willing to let me work on a part-time basis for the first 6 or 7 months. And they had never done this before, but they kindly obliged to doing it. So I did JET. I finished up my final year on JET while working part-time for a company that I knew was going to hire me full-time after JET. And the only challenge was getting permission from my contracting organization to do this. So there are, there's always going to be challenges with the timing and whatnot. So maybe Susan, do you want to comment on the timing for your job?
Yeah, I think really it was as soon as you're going into your final year, then I think there's no harm just starting to put the feelers out as soon as you can. I mean, I wasn't necessarily looking into going into a Japanese company as a kind of April, kind of new grad sort of position. So I was more open on timing. But I think just start putting the feelers out as soon as possible. As soon as you know that the year goes by very quickly. So as soon as you're started, your kind of third or whatever, I'm not sure, like your final year has begun, then I would just start kind of looking into what's out there and speaking to as many people as you can, and use that time as well to prepare your CV or whatever else you need to do to get talking to people. Because the interview process does take time, and I mean there's a lot of interviews, but also then the time between interviews as well. Like, even it mightn't seem so at the time, but it does take, it can easily take 3 or 4 months from the first conversation to an actual offer. So I think just, you might think I've got a whole year left, but it goes by quickly.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is to do with the Japanese companies hiring for full-time, like permanent positions. They really are thorough in their application process, and they really want to be sure that they're hiring the right person. So I think that there's a lot of stages and a lot of bureaucracy too of getting this signed off, and it does take time. So thank you all for a response on that. Eric, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to mention it, but thank you all for your speeches as well. Thanks, that helps a lot. Cheers.
Okay, Sam, I see your hand is up there.
Hi everybody. I know some of the people on this call there, so good to see. Just going on from the kind of following up on Eric's question there would be in relation to the process. When you were going for your jobs in Japan, what was it like from, say, from the application phase to your final interview and so on? Like, you see examples now in Japanese companies of, say, the idea of like you're going into an interview with maybe 4 or 5 people beside you and you're all being interviewed at once. Like, how accurate would that be? Like, would that be varying between your experiences? I'd be curious to know.
I can speak on that if you like. I applied for a couple of different companies. Some of them were foreign-based and some of them were Japanese-based. Some of the foreign-based consulting companies that I did actually did have me do group interviews, like you mentioned, which was quite jarring, to be honest. Quite scary, but it was also online, so it was a double layer of weirdness, I guess. But I do think it depends on some of the companies that you're applying for. If you're applying for a lot of them through the JET career fairs, they're aimed at, I guess, foreign people who are looking to find jobs in Japan. So the system is a little bit different to, I guess, the traditional Japanese system that you might be imagining. There's obviously still all the layers of multiple interviews, long wait times between answers, different things like that. But I do think that it's I don't want to say like a nicer version, but I do think that it was a bit more streamlined, I guess, at least in my own experience.
Great, thank you, Grace. Ronan or Susan, do you want to jump in on the process, like how many interviews or what it was like for you?
I mean, when I went from JET to that, it was, I mean, it was a lot more simple. It was kind of 2 or 3 interviews, and I think they did something, I can't remember how, but like to check my Japanese reading and writing. So, I mean, speaking obviously in the interview, but also they did check the reading and writing side of it as well. And then another stuff kind of that I know more recently, I think generally 3, 4 interviews, depending on which level of a position you're going for as well, but probably 3 or 4 interviews. And then also, I think a lot of Japanese companies also request, so I know for Dentsu, for example, it would be, you know, obviously as well as your CV, your Sucuangco Kisho, so your whole Japanese kind of, well, there's 2 different forms of resume, I think in Japanese that Dentsu request, for example, and then also what you want to achieve, why you're applying for the company, what you want to achieve at the company, and also your kind of your self PR, you know, so why they should hire you were also kind of requested as well. So just, I suppose, like just an extended form of a cover letter that we'd have at home.
Great. And Ronan, you mentioned that yours was through LinkedIn. Did you have the same process, or am I mistaken? Was yours through LinkedIn? No.
Yeah. So I applied. I basically messaged Will, the MD, being like, "Hey, give me a job, please." And then he was like, "Yes, of course. Here you go. There you go." No, I'm joking. I had to apply, send an email, CV, cover letter, and then I had 3 interviews. But Sam, to answer your question, I would say, I think if you're applying for a Japanese company, they're much more thorough. From my friends living in Tokyo, applying for, international roles, or kind of if they're working for a gaishi, it tends to just be maybe 2, 3 interviews, and they tend to be quite casual. Some might be serious, but yeah, I think it all depends. I would personally love to do the kind of like sitting in a room, 5 people, "Chikopiaru onegaishimasu." I would love to do that, just to experience it once, but yeah, pretty traumatic, I'd say.
I've been on the other side of that panel there through my CIR job, so I wouldn't want to be doing one of those myself now. So just, yeah, I'm glad there's options, we might say. Cheers, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam, for the question. We also have Ethan with your hand up there.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, so I'm a CIR in Matsue. I only set up my PC, so I don't have my webcam with me right now, so sorry about that. But I was just wondering, so I studied in UCC, and I actually worked remotely for a Tokyo company doing translation and social media and things like that during COVID. And obviously I'm in Matsue now. Now I'm not planning to apply for a job I want to stay in Japan, but I'm not planning to apply for a different job for another couple of years. But I was just wondering, for the people who are living in Japan, do you think much has changed post-COVID? Do you think the hiring and the roles and much has changed post-COVID? And do you think it will kind of come back to what it used to be before COVID? Or do you think like things like remote work and hybrid work have become more of the norm?
Great question.
Leave it to you guys.
Me again. Yeah, sorry. At least in my company, I joined, I guess, after the biggest wave of COVID hit, and I never got to work at home because we were told, well, what if someone comes in for an interpretation? How are you going to take it if you're at home? So fair enough, we went in every day. And since I joined the company, telework and remote work is technically a possibility, but we are told at least I was told, they would like us to be mainly present. And if you have something that really requires you to be at home, then it's fine. But I think they're looking, at least in my own company, they're looking for us to be, let's say, shusha, I don't know, going to work 80% of the time, and 20% of the time would be okay to do remote work or work from home. But that's just my own, I think, company culture, is that they prefer in person, just for sake of like having meetings and stuff like that.
Ours is, so Dentsu is 100% working from home. I mean, as in, there's no rule. So of course you can come into the office, but it's all free addresses. So you don't have a set desk. And it went from being, so up until COVID, there's, in theory, you were allowed to work from home if you wanted to, but you needed to have written permission from your boss, and also say exactly what you were going to do that day from working, when you're working from home, and then show proof that you had actually, completed the tasks that you said, and you weren't just skiving at home. And then all of a sudden COVID happened, and we were told, don't come in from tomorrow. And then that was it, never again. I'd say some people come in once a year for their health checkup, and I think it's just, people are happy to stay at home and not have the commute and so on. So I think it's actually, I think it's a pity. But they've also, we had a huge big company building that we sold during COVID, and we leased back for 10 years. So basically they can't accommodate all of the people anymore. So they're bringing in all the group companies and everything into the office, and getting rid of other kind of other buildings that we had outside the HQ. So they can't ever enforce it ever again, because they just don't have the space. But I know that depending on the division, people are trying to encourage it. But it's still the same people come in every day, and the same people never come in. So I'd say probably we're at like not even 20% of people coming in.
Very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how they went from like 0 remote work to don't come in again.
It's very interesting. My girlfriend as well, she's Japanese. She works for like a major car manufacturer, and it's a very similar story. Like once COVID hit, it became extremely flexible. And she says there's some people who come in once every 6 months nowadays as well.
Yeah. No, it's scary. But then there's, like Grace was saying, her company encourages it. And I know like one of my clients, actually, it was, it's Fujifilm kind of business innovation. So they are providing they're providing the tools for people to work remotely, but they were insisting on everybody coming in even during COVID. So while we were making ads for them saying like, look, you can work from the jungle if you want, they were insisting on everybody being at their desks every morning. So it's a huge, I think, corporate culture. And then just for our case as well, I think it was just obviously a business decision was made to give up a lot of our, for cash flow and everything as well, and give up a lot of our kind of working space.
Yeah, I think it's an important question to ask, because so at my company, we do 3 days from the office, 2 days from home. And we basically tell our kind of seniors, or I don't know, it's a weird, the way my company is structured is, it's a small company. So just tell our bosses which days we want to work from home for that week. And then that's the system. But I think, I don't know, I really think, I guess maybe I'm more traditional in this sense, but I really think kind of getting to spend time with your colleagues and getting to spend time with your boss is really important, especially when you just finish the JET program, because you don't really, like, you learn how to work by spending time with your colleagues, I think.
By osmosis. Kind of, you need to, yeah.
I think it's so important. And I think people should kind of decide a workplace depending on that. I mean, yeah, I meet Japanese companies on a daily basis and go to their offices and stuff and always ask the question. It's just small talk, right? It's just like, hey, do you do work from home? And all of them do. But there's those companies where it's like 100%, and that just like it's insane to me. Yeah. By the way, Ethan, this is probably should be talked about off the call, but you had coffee with my neighbors. So
No way.
my neighbors in Shimane
Yes.
came home from a trip.
Oh,
And
in Tokyo last year, was it?
and yeah, they were like, by the way, I met the Matsue CR. I was like, but anyway, we'll keep that short. That's just a quick.
Yeah, that's true. I was there last year and I randomly met two people from Hamada, and this is when I knew I was coming to Shimane. And I was talking with my friend. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're from Hamada," and I haven't gotten to go to Hamada yet because I've just been in Matsue and Izumo and Kenshu is the only places I've been so far. But yeah, I'm still planning to go down and visit them. But it's crazy. It's not Shimane is a very small world.
I mean, it's crazy that you met them in Tokyo as well. City
Yeah,
of
it's just very, very. It was an odd feeling when they come up. I felt like I was about to be, someone's going to come out with a camera and be like, "No, you're on some TV show or something." But yeah, you tend to bump into a lot of people who know people in Shimane if they've ever been here. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks. Thanks for the comments and the questions. Ethan, good to have your question. I'm just conscious that we're running up on time. So before we close off the evening, we'll end the Q&A session there. But just if anyone had other questions they wanted to ask, please reach out to the speakers directly on LinkedIn. Their LinkedIn profiles are all on the event page from tonight on our website, or you can contact us if you're looking for an introduction or anything like that. And we're happy to provide that. So just, yeah, on behalf of us all here tonight, I would really like to just emphasize my appreciation to all of our speakers, Ronan, Grace, Patrick, Susan, Erika, Derek, and Aedín for all the great insights you provided us. Thank you very, very much. We'll have a virtual round of applause. Oh, and we'd also like to take this opportunity to do a quick kind of a group photo where anyone who wants to put on their cameras, you're more than welcome to. And Lily will do her magic with some screenshots. So
okay, so I will just sorry, just take a moment here and change the screen. All right, and please feel free to turn on your filters or anything like that. Let's see what I have here. Maybe I'll put on a hat or something.
filters down the bottom.
So if you go into Zoom, I believe it's the settings, and then under background and effects, you can put on like a filter and get out your reactions, and then I'll just do a countdown. So everyone ready? All right, 3, 2, 1. Jeez. All right, just taking a few screenshots here. Lovely. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lily, for facilitating that with your cool filter, which I can't unsee now. Sorry, the breakout rooms are optional for those of you who are available. I know we're kind of coming up on time, so we may only have time for one breakout room tonight. Feels like a long time since we've done breakout rooms. Yeah, Lily, are we ready to move to the breakout rooms, or do we need a few minutes to get them set up?
Yeah, no, all good.
We're ready? Okay. All right, so we'll go off into our little groups and we can chat there.
And I'll do it should I do 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah, maybe we'll do a little shorter, so we may be able to squeeze in 2. Maybe do like 6 minutes, just to be awkward.
Sounds good. All right. So I will open those up now.
I'm just gonna have a look. Where did they go? How do you get them back up?
The breakout rooms?
Yeah. Oh, I found it.
Yeah, it's been ages since I've done
Wow. And feel free to join one too if you want.
Oh, sorry, I'll pause the recording.
Oh, I just really quick. Sorry. Just really quickly want to say as well on behalf of everyone, again, thanks to our speakers as well, but also thanks to everyone for turning out tonight and being here. We really appreciate it. As well to all the organizations that supported us with tonight's event. We had the IJCC Regional Committee, the JET Desk at the Embassy of Japan in Dublin, DCU, UL, PPLI, and National AJET. We're all involved in sharing the information. And also I'd like to give a special recognition to our operations manager, Lily, for managing all the tech side behind the scenes. So thank you, Lily. So yeah, we'll finish up. You're welcome to reach out to the IJCC at any point. We have our AGM coming up next month. There should be a lot of updates after that. So keep an eye on that via our website or LinkedIn, Facebook, or our newsletter. You can sign up to that for without being a member. And if you're someone who is in rural Japan and you want to get in touch to present about your region, we're also happy to hear more about it and have maybe an online event similar to this. Anyway, we're open to all ideas, which hopefully you got a good feeling for the community tonight. Yeah, we'll wrap up. So thank you all very much, and we'll hope to see you again at a future event. Good night.
Great. Thank you. Night night.
Good night. Thanks,
Ashley.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thank you.